Our world is changing rapidly. New ideas, new concepts, new technologies. The technologies around us provide more and more data. For most of us, there's almost too much data available. At the same time, number and severity of extreme weather event increases, creating new societal, environmental and economic challenges. At this time of uncertainty, the importance of accurate and reliable observations and forecasts is increasing. We need reliable and accurate data to make smart, considered decisions. Only accurate data enables us to understand and act upon the most pressing challenges, for example in trade, national security, health and infrastructure. At Vaisala, we help our customers to establish weather and environmental observation networks and to respond to environmental challenges that affect our daily lives. The goal for all of us is to build a sustainable future for our planet and to improve water, food, energy and health security. Only together we can rise to the challenge of innovating different approaches for science, policy and practice, thus improving the quality of life, safety and sustainability, whatever the weather brings us.
Climate change and extreme weather, energy consumption and emissions, global health threats, resource scarcity. From a 1930s startup to a global measurement technology leader, Vaisala has always been a visionary pioneer. By teaming up brilliant minds and cutting-edge technologies, we co-create innovative solutions to measure, analyze, and act for a better world. With our product and technology leadership, we answer to the growing need for quality, reliability, and productivity. We enable business-critical operations and decisions where it truly matters. We see a future where accurate observations and forecasts help protect lives and infrastructure, where reliable production chains in life science and other industries tackle health challenges of growing populations, and where optimized generation and use of clean and renewable energy, as well as improved industrial production, maximize the use of our planet's scarce resources. An eye into the invisible. That is our contribution to the world.
Good evening, good afternoon, welcome to the 102nd annual meeting of the American Meteorological Society. We're really thrilled to be here in the city of Houston, the nation's fourth largest city, and by the latest census, the most diverse city in America. Of all places that have experienced environmental security impacts, you can't talk about more of it than Houston. I'm sure the mayor, we were happy to have here, Mayor Sylvester will be sharing those with his remarks. We have a world-class panel today to go ahead and talk with you about this. It's going to be made up of professionals from the UN, the administration, think tanks, and of course from the local perspective and broader, our Mayor of Houston. So with that, I'd like to introduce, we're going to go through a little bit here. First of all, I'd like to make a note for those who are watching online that we do have safe space up here on the podium, so we'll be speaking masks off, but everybody's safe in the audience, all masked up as according to our protocol. We're going to have 5 speakers, at which point at the end we'll have a little time for Q&A. Our first speaker will also provide a little extended remarks to give you a primer, a little bit of an introduction to what environmental security means and why it's important to the world and then to us specifically as atmospheric and earth system scientists here in the AMS. With that, I'd like to introduce our panel. We'll go one at a time. And we have the, are we ready to go on the screen? I want to read the actual bio here because I want to make sure I get all this right. So we're going to start off with Ms. Sherry Goodman, who's been sometimes referred to as the godmother of environmental security, who's been a thought leader in this for decades. She comes to us from a senior fellow from the Polar Institute in the Environmental Change and Security Program at the Woodrow Wilson International Institute for Scholars, and also a leader at the Environmental Change and Security Program. She comes to us from as senior strategist from the Center for Climate and Security, and is also the secretary of the General of the International Military Council on Climate and Security. So she has the national, international perspective. With that, I'd like to invite Sherry, who's going to join us remotely.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you. I only regret that I can't be with you there today in Houston. I would have very much welcomed that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, especially for welcoming your great city. It is indeed a great city. That is a perfect place to host this conference as we think about what environmental security means in the modern era. And I recall when I first started working in this field back in the 1990s with, I hope some of you who are on the line now, it was an era when we were closing military bases after the Cold War. Many of them were in Texas and around Houston. And we were working with the former Soviet Union to help rid them of nuclear weapons. How the world has changed in the last several decades. We were working to clean up contamination, and we were using the work of the meteorology community to more precisely understand military operations around the world and plan for a changed world. We were also using your work very much to manage the natural resources of the planet, of our cities, of our military. And in many ways, we have done a fair good job, let's say, from a local level in maintaining ecosystems. But at a national level, we are now entering into a biodiversity crisis. Now we have find ourselves moving into understanding better the connections between climate and global security. And for the last at least 15 years, since the first group of generals and admirals came together to understand climate change as a threat multiplier, we have had a growing focus on understanding the national security implications of climate change and what it means for our world. And that has taken sort of front and center now at the local, national, and international level. And that's why I think what we're joined together to address today and throughout this conference is so fundamental. And let me say, when I think about the broader field of climate and security, it is inclusive of many of the topics that will be covered in this conference, from the growing focus on health security, the threat multipliers of changing disease vectors and infectious disease. COVID has shown us how unprepared we are for infectious disease crisis and how closely linked is our health, our climate, and our security. Also, growing food insecurity around the world. I'm so pleased to see so much of that on this agenda as well, because what we are learning through mounting evidence of increasing drought and water insecurity is how our food systems globally are threatened with rising temperatures and changing access to food in many underserved places of the world. And then, we can't leave out water, too much of it or not enough of it. And we have both in critical places and globally. And we've seen how not enough water, drought, prolonged drought in the Sahel and parts of Syria has led directly to the conflagrations in certain regions. And that is something that we need better to understand and plan for the future. And I know this community is very much involved in doing that. And then, of course, extreme weather events. That is, you've always planned for hurricanes or volcanoes and cyclones and tsunamis. But now we see them coming at a more rapid rate with more intensity and cascading events, compounding risks. In the military, we used to plan for two major regional conflicts back in the 1990s, one in the Pacific and one in Europe. Okay, and now we could see combination of major regional conflicts around the world, as well as an increasing demand on our military forces to support natural disasters here at home. And we've seen that in the last several years. The Deputy Secretary of Defense, Kathleen Hicks, noted not long ago that there's been almost a tenfold demand in person hours required by the National Guard over the last few years to respond to natural disasters, both climate-fueled, COVID needs, and our own democracy. We shouldn't leave out how fragile that is at the present time and how important we have to think about all of these efforts. So let me go back now to the sort of, we start at the local level because we're there. Let's assume we're there in Houston. I wish I were. It's a lot warmer than where I am right now. But our cities are the sort of incubators of resilience today. And that is what I'm very much looking forward to hearing from the mayor. But I say that's also the case with our military infrastructure. And that's an important role that the meteorological community plays in helping our military bases in the US and around the world better prepare for the events like the hurricane that struck Tyndall Air Force Base, Hurricane Michael a few years ago, as well as Hurricane Harvey in Houston, and the hurricane that damaged Camp Lejeune and the flooding that damaged Offutt Air Force Base, all resulting in billions of dollars of damage and in some cases, tragic loss of life. So better being able to predict those, not only the singular events, but the compounding risks that flow from that. And then as we work at the national level to better understand how we're going to manage this tension now we face between what the home game is, our increasing need for natural disaster response at home, and the ability to protect our force and protect democracy abroad, the away game. And then we have the tension between how we allocate our investments between responding to the event. We're investing billions of dollars now to rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base, but we have many other bases, for example, that we also need to ensure our resilience. So we need to prepare. So as we say, getting sort of left of boom, and it's the preparedness and prevention mindset is even more important. I know my friend and colleague Alice has focused a great deal on that across the whole of society. I'm somewhat modestly hopeful that in the defense and meteorology and the oceanographic community, we have, with the planning culture of the military, the ability to do that and to reset our forces to be able to address this both at the local and the national and at the international level. Now, that's where we need to really join forces with our allies and partners in better understanding both the risks. And I will tip my hat here to my colleague, Roger Bulwardy, with whom and others of you, who's been working the last several years on a project on improving predictive capabilities for disruptive national security events with environmental causes and climate and water and energy fueled. And that in many ways has allowed us to understand how, as Roger would say, risk is socially constructed. But at the same time, the compounding and the cascading risk and understanding the integration of the physical consequences with the transboundary consequences and the transnational consequences. And in many ways, some of the documents from the Biden administration focusing on the Defense Climate Risk Assessment, and now the first ever Climate National Intelligence Estimate, both give us healthy guides to how better to understand those risks and how to plan and prepare for them. And that's why those elements, and particularly understanding now how the changing geopolitics of the energy transition are going to, in some ways, exacerbate some of the short-term risks as we move away from fossil fuels. Some assets get stranded in certain places. And then there are supply chain issues that we also need to cope with. So the complexities of that and the stress on the system. And the awesome thing at the end, I'll just say, the future here is really closer than we think. And that's why we need not to suffer from a failure of imagination. And I'm so pleased and honored that we have Jane Luchenko here with us as well, because Jane is right at the center of helping us better understand these risks and integrate the science with the climate services as we move towards making this information more usable to a variety of sectors that you all serve, from security, which I call my home, but also in transportation, in health, and across many sectors of society. And I think this is going to enable us to create a more robust and broader framed environmental security system that also at the end of the day moves us towards the greater concept of ecological security, which is health of the planet as well as all of us who populate it. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today.
All right, thank you much, Sherry. We're now going to go to our next panelists, and the next four, we're going to organize them in the sequence, kind of starting from their primary jobs now, from the international to the national to the regional, and then ending with the mayor with the local. But you'll notice that on all four of their sets of remarks, they're all involved at all of these levels. So it's a very integrated approach from all those that I think you're going to find very interesting. So our next speaker is Mami Mitsutori. She is the Special Representative to the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction, sometimes referred to as UNDRR. And she's the Director of the Office of Disaster Risk Reduction, formerly UNSDA. So I would like to please bring Mami onto the screen, and I ask her to provide her opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. Mr. Mayor, like Sherry said, I would have really wanted to be in Houston, but my heart and soul is there. So ladies and gentlemen, in the last few years, as Sherry has just mentioned, our world has been pummeled by a disease we were not prepared for. But this is important. In 2015, when the UN member states came together to negotiate and agree on the global blueprint for disaster risk reduction and resilience, a document called the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, actually biological hazards were indeed incorporated as the next big hazard we need to protect ourselves from. So we can't say that we didn't think about this. And now COVID has left hardly anyone or any aspect of our lives untouched. Although the overwhelming number of disasters in the last 50 years, about 90%, have been related indeed to extreme weather events, COVID, with its abrupt arrival and universal impact, this has been a stark reminder that we are living in a world where risk is interconnected with cascading impacts. And as risk multiplies, their impacts affect whole communities, whole systems. Global impacts become local, local impacts become global, and they penetrate across sectors, creating new challenges, and uncertainty has become the new normal. But in a world of uncertainty, some things are very certain. If we want to achieve sustainable development, We need to better understand the nature of risk that is surrounding us, and we need to make prudent choices now. Our goal at UNDRR, the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, is to support countries minimize losses from disaster through investment in preparation and prevention before a hazard becomes a disaster. There are numerous ways we can take action in the face of future pandemics and climate emergency, and I would like to offer a few ideas today. First, our financial and governance systems need to account for the true cost of our own actions. This is a huge challenge, but one tool that can help is systemic risk modeling, which is built on innovation in modeling systemic financial crisis. These models can help us better understand how risk cascades throughout different sectors, different geographies, disrupting key systems like food system, infrastructure, and supply chains, and further drive social impacts such as forced migration and conflict. UNDRR is working with governments of both developed and developing countries, academia, civil society, the private sector, and of course the youth, to improve access to these analytics and data. Second, we need to find and implement solutions together as we all ultimately have the same interest, which is to have a sustainable planet that supports human thriving. It is only through our combined knowledge and efforts, including robust global partnerships, that we will and we can make the most progress. Given the importance of local resilience with cities at the front line of all disasters at UNDRR, one such partnership that we are trying to take forward globally is to make the focus on resilient cities. So along with 11 global partners, we are helping cities stand prepared for the next disaster through a program called Making Cities Resilient 2030. This is an online platform which offers a dashboard to connect with networks, information, and service providers. And we would like to encourage all cities to explore this option. Third, our mantra at UNDRR is this: resilience is a wise investment. It is not an extra cost. One such investment is in early warning systems. The United States has some wonderful early warning tools that are saving lives and mitigating losses. An app called Shake Alert helps citizens on the West Coast to take cover before an earthquake. In Houston, a radar-based flood assessment, mapping, and early warning system helps emergency managers better address multi-risk situations such as COVID and flooding coming together. This pioneering work will pay countless dividends, and our hope is to see these systems proliferate throughout the world, including, importantly, in the developing world where many countries are still in dire need. Here again, strong partnerships, strategic investment, and shared knowledge is invaluable. We need more solidarity. Without it, we cannot overcome any of the crises that we are facing. No doubt, few among us like seeing rising prices, but faltering supply chains could do a good job actually, of reminding us of our interdependence and that working together is a necessity and not an option. The COVID virus instigated this chain reaction, but with effects still unfolding, it's a story still being written. Supply chains might become more regional and thus less polluting. Companies may get more focused on their business contingency plans, and the world may ultimately take risk and disasters more seriously. COVID could become our opportunity to make the paradigm shift from trying to always manage and responding to disasters after they break us to managing disaster risks by investing in resilience before hazards become disasters. we need to break out from this vicious cycle of disaster response, recovery, reconstruction, and disaster again. In the era of climate emergency, systemic risk, and compounded disasters, we cannot afford to waste any disaster, and certainly not one which is as powerful as this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, those comments and that perspective. We're going to shift now to our third speaker, the Honorable Jane Lubchenco. Dr. Lubchenco is the Deputy Director for Climate and Environment at the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House, and that is the office that is often referred to as the President's Science Advisor. And so we'd like to welcome Jane to give her remarks now. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, distinguished panelists, AMS colleagues, it's really a great treat to join you today. Thank you so much, Mike, and congratulations on elevating environmental security as the theme for the 102nd AMS annual meeting. The term environmental security encapsulates the challenges that AMS members embrace in their research, observations, and services. And it anchors much of what we focus on, excuse me, in my climate and environment team at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. So this forum really provides an opportunity to reflect on the changing nature of our planet and the need for fresh approaches to address the unprecedented challenges facing our communities, our nation, and the world. Delivering on the promise of improving lives and livelihoods, creating jobs, addressing inequities, and making our world more secure requires us to recognize the interdependence of people and nature, to view our coupled human and natural world as a series of complex adaptive systems, to focus on making these coupled systems more resilient with good outcomes, and to act on the knowledge that the past is no longer a good predictor of the future. Indeed, now is a fundamentally different time than ever before. We live in a no analog world. Achieving a more secure world requires broadening our thinking and actions to include the stability of the global climate system, the health of our lands, waters, and ecosystems, and the relationships among humans and between humans and the environment. It requires understanding that social justice, economic growth, global security, and environmental sustainability are intimately interconnected, and it requires holistic, not reductionist thinking. One need look no further than our host city of Houston, which was devastated by Hurricane Harvey in 2017, followed by Nicholas in 2021, to see the interdependencies, cascading impacts, and unprecedented nature of today's challenges. I'm delighted we have the opportunity to hear today from Houston's mayor. Those tragic events join a litany of other extreme weather, water, and climate catastrophes, from devastating floods and wildfires to extreme heat and drought. Indeed, over the past decade, NOAA estimates that extreme weather events have caused over $1 trillion in damages in the US alone. And we know all too painfully that the impacts are so much greater. Behind the dollar statistics are people, families, their health, livelihoods, homes, and culture. So we can no longer afford silos or retrograde approaches. Yet we often retreat to what we know, what we're used to thinking and doing. Being stuck is not conducive to meeting challenges head on. So it's time to embrace complexity, to accept uncertainty, to diversify approaches and diversify problem solvers. So you might ask, what does that look like? Well, on the conceptual side, I've already hinted at the need to understand the world as a nested set of complex adaptive systems, coupled social, economic, and environmental systems. And this holistic approach recognizes that patterns at higher levels of organization emerge from localized interactions and selection processes that act at those lower levels. Paramount in this framing is the need to tighten the feedback loops between actions and consequences or outcomes, and the overarching importance of focusing on resilience of the system, not just the components. Maintaining the resilience of ecosystems so they can continue to deliver our life support system benefits is as important as making our built infrastructure more resilient. On the practical side, this forward-looking approach means building trusted, useful, and frequently updated information services so that families, communities, businesses, and government agencies can prepare. It means strengthening effective early warning systems for disasters and making our green and gray infrastructure disaster ready. But it also means building trusted relationships. And it means enabling institutions to be nimble and flexible with rapid bi-directional flow of information and facile adjustment to new knowledge. And across these approaches, it means expecting surprises and building redundancy to avoid catastrophic collapse of key functions. Key to all of these enabling capacities will be diversifying the problem solvers. Now, in some instances, we need new knowledge to address these challenges. But the truth is that much of our current knowledge is not used. The bipartisan infrastructure bill the President signed into law in October provides a golden opportunity to begin to put existing knowledge into action while also creating new knowledge. Federal agencies are actively working to enhance resilience in the face of climate-related threats. The $50 billion in funding for resilience projects includes accelerating flood protection projects, updating aging infrastructure, boosting pre-disaster mitigation programs, and enhancing weather and climate information. As we've learned from COVID-19, building resilience requires not only strengthening our infrastructure, but addressing fundamental vulnerabilities within our communities. And that's why key components of the Build Back Better legislation are also urgently needed to strengthen communities. Security threats often arise from inequity. Investments are needed to enhance resilience for everyone, and that means they must be designed by everyone. And that's why the President's Justice 40 initiative is so important, by ensuring that federal investments target those communities most in need. We can avoid marginalized groups and communities of color from being left behind. As we move forward with this more robust vision of resilience, we must acknowledge that we are pushing up against the limits of our knowledge, gaps that limit our foresight regarding emerging risks, diagnosis of cause and effect, and therefore our ability to design and implement policies that are robust to the complexities of global changes. At OSTP, we're being asked how agencies should efficiently and consistently evaluate infrastructure projects for their climate resilience. How should the financial sector evaluate climate risks for investigators? How should we elevate our resilience efforts to know what works and then share that knowledge with others? And this is exactly why I have challenged the U.S. Global Change Research Program to accelerate their efforts to produce the most urgently needed knowledge and to enhance efforts to make that knowledge useful. I thank those of you who are already tackling these problems, and I invite even more AMS members to help. I'm excited about the potential for scientists rising to these challenges, and I'm delighted to see scientific and practitioner communities coming together with passion, concern, open minds, and a willingness to embrace new approaches, new collaborations, new thinking. Their attitude mirrors Albert Einstein's sentiment that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them. So make no mistake, the challenges are unprecedented and daunting. But I look to the AMS community to help deliver the systemic innovation strategies we need to collaborate across disciplines and partner with users to create, share, and use the knowledge, awareness, and action that we need to enhance the well-being of people and the planet. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Chinko, for those thoughtful comments. We're going to move on now to Alice Hill. I'm happy to introduce her. She is the David N. Rubenstein Senior Fellow for Energy and the Environment at the Council on Foreign Relations. She's also the co-chair of the California Climate Insurance Working Group. So it goes, obviously their impacts, I think, goes beyond the state borders of California. So this is a perspective we have not heard a lot before, and so we're really looking forward to hearing from you. So Alice, would you please come on and provide your comments?
Thank you so much for having me here today, Mike. It's really my honor to share this panel with these esteemed panelists, and thank you, Mayor Turner, for hosting this group in your wonderful city. I too, of course, wish I could be there with you. It's a remarkable occasion. Today, the AMS was founded in 1919, 102 years ago. I can't help but think back on those first attendees. They were, of course, emerging from the devastation of World War I, and they too were dealing with a rampaging pandemic that had killed millions across the globe. That group could only dream of the technology that is at our fingertips now and in our homes. But in the past century, new developments have greatly affected our environment in ways that most would not have foreseen and would not have had an opportunity to address. Of course, each of us has had a front row seat in dealing with our pandemic in our century. But this century, particularly the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, have seen climate change impacts batter the world in a way that no humans have ever witnessed before. This crowd could probably recite by memory the string of devastating events that have cut across all regions and all borders. From the heat dome in the Pacific Northwest, where a town in Canada experienced temperatures higher than any ever recorded in Florida, to European flooding that exceeded any before in Germany. According to the reinsurer Munich Re, natural disasters caused significantly more financial damage worldwide in 2021 compared with the previous 2 years. Based on their provisional data, overall losses caused by natural disasters came to $280 billion in 2021, compared with $210 billion in 2020 and $166 billion in 2019. And of course, the United States owned a large portion of those losses. Approximately $145 billion due to tornadoes, tropical storms, and freezes. So we're getting walloped by climate change. And that is revealing a deep vulnerability that wouldn't have been obvious to those scientists 100 years ago. They were doing what we're doing. They were basing future decisions on what we had experienced in the past. But because virtually all of our infrastructure is built to the climate of the past, we are seeing compounding, failing infrastructure that causes cascading damages across our society, and that is threatening homeland security. It threatens us in our livelihoods, our ability to recover, our public health, our public safety. Climate impacts, whether they're slow moving like drought and sea level rise, or acute like the wildfires that California is experiencing in winter today in the iconic Big Sur region. Those impacts affect everything, and we are not prepared. So what are we to do? There are numerous barriers that have held back progress on climate change, but one I think is particularly important for this audience to keep in mind as it works forward on figuring out what will be most helpful for communities, decision makers to plan and prepare for climate change impacts. As the panelists have described, this is needed, urgently needed. The first is that we should pay attention to how humans assess catastrophic risk. We're not particularly good at it. And the social scientists have told us there are all sorts of reasons for that. Our tendency to judge risk based on what we have personally experienced, to suffer from availability bias. If we don't know it, we don't think it could happen. We also tend to be optimists, which is a wonderful thing, but we don't believe it could get as bad as it can get. In short, we routinely suffer from a failure of imagination, and that failure has been proven to be a high vulnerability, whether it's from our failure to anticipate the Pearl Harbor attack during the preceding World War II, the entry of the United States. The after-action reports there all said it was a failure of imagination. We couldn't imagine being attacked from the Pacific. Similarly, after 9/11, one of the major findings of the 9/11 Commission was that the United States suffered a lack of imagination. We simply couldn't imagine two planes flying into those World Trade Center buildings. So with climate change, I'm afraid most of us still suffer from a lack of imagination. And that's why it's so important for those who have access to the information, who understand what is at stake, make it comprehensible, understandable, and actionable for those who have to make the hard decisions about how to prepare their communities. We need to stop fighting the last war or building the bridge to accommodate the last flood. Going forward, virtually all of our decisions will need to account for the future risk of climate change. But that's something that humans have really never done before. We need to understand that we can no longer assume that the past will safely guide us in the future, or that the past will resemble the future that we will experience. And that means when we decide how close to build our communities near the river or the sea, or where we should plant our crops or when, we will need to account for how our climate is rapidly changing. When the climate was stable, and that's what we've enjoyed for thousands of years, that assumption that the past resembled the future held us in good stead. But that climate that we've enjoyed for the last 8,000 to 10,000 years is no longer with us. And we are changing at a very rapid clip, and our decision makers need to understand that, catch up, and make the decisions that will better protect us in the future. We can no longer afford to have our world's economic systems teeter atop what one expert called backward-looking risk assessments based on historical trends. But few decision makers, either in the private or public sector, yet account for this changing risk. In the United States, more people have moved into areas at risk in certain areas than outside. For example, since 2009, more than a third of the country's coastal states have added homes in areas prone to flooding. These houses face growing flood risk from more extreme precipitation, those rain bombs, which Houston experienced, with Hurricane Harvey, extreme precipitation falling so quickly that no city is prepared to absorb it, stronger storm surge, and rising seas. We've also seen a boom in housing at areas at great risk of wildfire, and we've seen a number of those housing communities go up in flames. Decisions about land use can increase vulnerability to harm from climate change, just as decisions about how to build can increase our vulnerability to climate change, and decision makers need to understand what they can do to improve the outcomes and reduce their risk to climate change. With climate change, it's what lies ahead that counts. But it turns out it's really hard for people to imagine that future. And so that leads me to my final point. The progress we are making in places like Houston, New York, California, Boston are leaving out many places across the nation. That's why this convening is so important, to begin the discussion about how we can help the thousands of communities across this nation. You know, we have some 40,000 municipalities that need to make choices about how and where they will build going forward. That's a lot of borders. That's a lot of people to educate, and we need to make this information simple, actionable, and available. Almost a decade ago, I met the part-time mayor of the very aptly named Perdido Beach in Alabama. Her community faced threats from heat, erosion, sea level rise, and storm surge. She told me, I get it. I understand that my community is at risk from climate change. But she told me, I don't have a big planning staff. I don't have grant writers or any resources. So how can I even know the size of the threats my community is facing, and what can I do to help protect them going forward? That question was posed over a decade ago. We are still struggling with the answer. The federal government and others generate enormous amounts of data and information concerning climate change. That information could help make us all safer. Yet we still lack adequate guidance, decision-making tools, and other resources to assist decision makers responsible for determining how to reduce that risk, make the choices necessary in the face of accelerating climate impacts. It's hard to figure out a community's vulnerabilities and what are the choices that could be made. The available resources are not often easily understood or even accessible to local decision makers on the ground. This is our challenge, creating the tools and services to help these communities. So let's all, as we move forward, keep the Patsy Parkers of the world in mind. With climate change, we need to bring everyone along, as Jane has said. The pandemic has shown us, as it showed those first attendees in 1919, what catastrophic risk looks like. Now we have the opportunity to improve outcomes for future generations. As Jane said, we need to be prepared to be surprised. We can't afford continued failures of imagination. So let's think about the convening of this group a century from now. What will they say that we did to address these growing threats to human security, national security, from climate change and other environmental loss? So thanks so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Alice. And this brings us to our last speaker of the panel. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Mayor Sylvester Turner of the great city of Houston. In addition to being the mayor, he has leadership roles in the national space. I don't have time to talk about all of them. He's really involved, but I'm going to focus on one. He is the chair of Climate Mayors. It's the largest mayoral organization in the country that deals with these issues, and he is the chair of that. So he is not just looking at these kind of issues in his own city, but across the country as well. So it's my pleasure to introduce the mayor and ask him to make his remarks.
There we go. Thank you, Mike, and that's a little bit loud. And let me say good afternoon to everyone, and certainly to all of the previous speakers. I'm also honored to welcome each of you to Houston, the American Meteorological Society. And let me thank you for choosing Houston, Mike, for the annual meeting. I come before you today, as Mike indicated, not just as the mayor of the city of Houston, but as chair of the U.S. Climate Mayors. There are roughly 474 of us across the United States, from red cities as well as blue cities, and that number is increasing. And I come before you as board chair of the Global Resilient Cities Network. Here this afternoon with me is Priya Zachariah. Priya, just stand up so they can see you. Priya is my director of the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Sustainability. So here in Houston, we are intentionally focused on addressing many of the issues that the panelists have already discussed. I believe that Houston in many ways is ground zero for many significant changes that are occurring as it relates to climate. And we have a responsibility to lead the nation and world in a direction that helps sustain our planet and not destroy it. I'll start off by saying, and most of my comments can be summarized in the sense that there's an urgency, and the urgency is now, that we do need to be proactive as it relates to climate change, but you can't have climate change effective in terms of your strategies without resilience, and you can't have resilience without equity being at the table. We know all too well that while for the last 2,000 years, the global change, climate change, relatively little, in the last few decades, our climate has changed at a rate that is unprecedented, historic, and has brought on devastating impacts. According to NOAA, as of July 2020, the state of Texas had experienced the most climate and weather events, about 119 events since 1980, that caused at least $1 billion worth of damages each, more than any other state. And what this means for Houston is that all seasons are warming, weather extremes are becoming more intense, hot days and heat waves are becoming more frequent and severe, precipitation patterns are changing with more extreme and intense rain events becoming even more destructive. And the overwhelming impacts of these changes are felt in our streets, in our homes, at our communities, our bayous, affecting our vital infrastructure networks and economic systems. In the past 6 years, Houston has experienced 7 federally declared disasters, from Hurricane Harvey that dumped about 52 inches of rain in some areas of Houston. And most recently, with Winter Storm Uri, a historic freeze left thousands of homes and facilities without electricity, disrupted our water infrastructure and systems, and paralyzed our entire state. And what is even more dire is that whether it's sudden shocks or stresses or a slow onset event, it is our most vulnerable communities, often communities of color, that are disproportionately impacted by the compounding impacts of climate change, putting them in a constant cycle of recovery. Climate change is not just an academic exercise or an academic discussion. It exacerbates our housing disparities, healthcare disparities, economic disparities, and for communities that are already living on the margins, they are in a constant state of recovery. But as we know to be true as Houstonians, and as we are tested by our greatest adversities, we also find our strongest resolve and our most formidable spirit to rise together. In the years following Hurricane Harvey, we embarked on our plan to address both climate change mitigation and adaptation. In 2020, I released the Resilient Houston Plan and shortly thereafter, the Climate Action Plan, two strategies that work together to create short and long-term solutions to tackle the climate issues we are facing while moving Houston forward with a focus on equity. The Climate Action Plan is a set of strategic actions organized along four major pillars. Energy transition. We are the energy capital of the world, but Houston needs to lead on energy transition. Electrifying our transportation fleet, building optimization and material management, recycling, addressing sectors strategically to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Our data-driven approach informs us that more than 95% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from the energy and transportation sectors. We use, in the city of Houston, we use more renewable energy than any other city in the country. And as of July 2020, all of our city municipal facilities, all of them, are now 100% powered by renewables. We created Evolve Houston, a public-private partnership to accelerate electric vehicle adoption, access, and awareness in Houston. Our Climate Action Plan calls for creating 4 new Energy 2.0 companies in Houston by 2025. And working with our universities and others, we are now ahead of our goal. The goal is to plant 4.6 million trees in the city of Houston in this decade alone, and we are on our way. In November of 2021, the city of Houston received an A grade for citywide climate action and was named among a new generation of climate leaders as one of only 95 cities across the globe. But even as we are proud of our accomplishments, we also acknowledge the journey ahead of us, and we still have a long way to go. It's no secret that some of the largest polluters call Houston home. We are the energy capital of the world, and that is why it is so important that we lead the energy transition away from traditional fuels to more sustainable practices. If we are successful, if we can do it here in the city of Houston, then the positive impacts can be felt around the globe, and we have an obligation to do that. Whether it's in carbon capture, utilization, and storage, whether it's clean hydrogen, or capitalize on the incredible wind and solar potential we have in Texas, or develop a thriving circular economy, we have the potential to decarbonize Houston and cities across this planet. Managing urban flood risk is another strategy that is central to our mitigation and adaptation efforts, both because of the increasing frequency and intensity of hurricanes, but also because the land around Houston is currently subsiding and is likely to continue to do so. It is likely that the relative sea level rise experienced in the region will be greater than the global average. In our response, we have turned to the Living with Water model, a collaborative problem-solving approach informed by both local, national, and international expertise from the Netherlands and Denmark. We considered recommendations across multiple systems and scales, from the bayou to the neighborhood. Strategies such as holding water where it falls, furthering and incentivizing green stormwater infrastructure, aligning the transportation and bayou network, and exploring the potential nature-based solution as an urban and recreational amenity are all actions in our Resilient Houston to help us further embrace and protect our water assets. As we continue to pursue the goals of the Paris Agreement, we must put equity and environmental justice at the core of our climate action. Through the work with the National League of Cities, we are working to develop a project prioritization framework, and internationally, Resilient Cities Network, which I chair, and would have developed the Resilient Infrastructure Diversity and Equity, or RIDE scorecard, a tool to measure the impact of each project based on equity. And as I said before, you can have climate change, but you have to have resilience. And if you don't have equity, you really have not achieved very much. Without adaptation, there can be no mitigation. And without equity in our efforts, there can be neither. And that's an overview of how Houston is weathering the storm of climate and resilience. But time is not on our side. And for people who are already living on the margins, every single time a storm comes, they are pushed down a little bit further. And every time you combine climate change with a pandemic like COVID, they are pushed down a little bit further. For these individuals, this is not an academic exercise. This is real life. It requires real solutions. And my advice to people in Congress, stop playing and let's get it done.
Thank you, Mayor Turner. That was an incredible conclusion to this opening panel. I hope all of you have been able to learn quite a bit from our distinguished panel and help put in perspective the goal of our environmental security theme, which is tying these real world issues to the science that we all know and love and do. And making that connection is why we chose this theme. And I would encourage you all to check out the environmental security special sessions starting in the morning, going all the way through. They do include topics on health security, energy security, water security, food security, impacts of extreme events, as well as special sessions on science and diplomacy, the history of environmental security, and one that's led by our own board of representatives and inclusivity and diversity braid. They're sponsoring our special session on environmental justice. So with that, I'd like to thank once again all our panelists with Sherry Goodman, Manny Mizzatori, Dr. Tajane Lubchenko, Alice Hill, and Mayor Sylvester Turner of Houston. This is, Mr. Mayor, this is the first time we have been here, but we will be back. We will be back in 4 years and 4 years after that. And we very much hope that we're going to be here in force. But you can tell our future is bright because we all have all our students here today. Next time you'll see them, they're going to be early career professionals. And after that, they're going to be running the world. So thank you so much. And I want to actually, while you're here, these are hot commodity. There were fist fights outside looking for these. This is our theme button. I'd like you to take one home with you, sir. Did you already have one?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, this concludes our presidential forum, and we're going to take a brief break. We can lead into this evening's next event, which is our business meeting and award ceremony. I encourage you all to stay, and really, we're going to be looking at the awards for all of the best of our society. And so with that, thank you for coming for tonight, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thanks.
Our world is changing rapidly. New ideas, new concepts, new technologies. The technologies around us provide more and more data. For most of us, there's almost too much data available. At the same time, number and severity of extreme weather event increases, creating new societal, environmental and economic challenges. At this time of uncertainty, the importance of accurate and reliable observations and forecasts is increasing. We need reliable and accurate data to make smart, considered decisions. Only accurate data enables us to understand and act upon the most pressing challenges, for example in trade, national security, health and infrastructure. At Vaisala, we help our customers to establish weather and environmental observation networks and to respond to environmental challenges that affect our daily lives. The goal for all of us is to build a sustainable future for our planet and to improve water, food, energy and health security. Only together we can rise to the challenge of innovating different approaches for science, policy and practice, thus improving the quality of life, safety and sustainability, whatever the weather brings us.
Climate change and extreme weather, energy consumption and emissions, global health threats, resource scarcity. From a 1930s startup to a global measurement technology leader, Vaisala has always been a visionary pioneer. By teaming up brilliant minds and cutting-edge technologies, we co-create innovative solutions to measure, analyze, and act for a better world. With our product and technology leadership, we answer to the growing need for quality, reliability, and productivity. We enable business-critical operations and decisions where it truly matters. We see a future where accurate observations and forecasts help protect lives and infrastructure, where reliable production chains in life science and other industries tackle health challenges of growing populations, and where optimized generation and use of clean and renewable energy, as well as improved industrial production, maximize the use of our planet's scarce resources. An eye into the invisible. That is our contribution to the world.
All right, there I am. I want to welcome everybody back. What a fantastic way to kick off with our Presidential Forum with a really world-class group of speakers. I want to thank Dr. Roger Pawardy, who helped set that up and assembled that panel. Couldn't have done that without him. It was just an incredible panel, and I want to thank him very much for helping us start off the conference right. So with that, we're going to transition now into the annual review. This is the formal business meeting, really brief, and then we're going to go on to the awards ceremony. We have confirmed with those online and in the room that we do have a quorum as required by our Constitution of more than 50 voting members, so we can continue with this formal business meeting for the year. Those of you that are joining us here that online, particularly that did not see the Presidential Forum, we will remind you that this year's theme of the 102nd annual meeting is environmental security. It's weather, water, and climate for a more secure world. And the environmental security being defined as the national security and human security impacts of weather, water, and climate extremes. As I mentioned before, we had a world-class panel kick us off and provide great perspective. If you missed that at home, as soon as it's posted, I strongly encourage you to watch it. It was an incredible hour of incredible speakers. At this point, I want to talk about some of the key people that are making this annual meeting a reality. And note that even in the pandemic and with a shift, frankly, at the last month, from hybrid to almost all virtual, we still have over 4,000 registered attendees, representing 47 countries. It will be featuring this year over 2,400 oral presentations, about 900 posters, and over 50 exhibitors. So even though we were not able to all come together here in person, this is still going to be a very robust and impactful annual meeting. I also want to thank everybody individually as groups who made this annual meeting happen. I want special thanks to go out that to help make it possible, especially in the light of all the challenges we just faced. It's really not possible to thank the literally hundreds of people that made this work. But I will mention a few key groups and I'll get into some names later. And starting with our corporate patron, Lockheed Martin, as well as our generous sponsors for the annual meeting. In terms of those individuals that really made a big difference, the AMS staff, like world-class staff professionals, and led for this annual meeting team by Jen Ives. The overall planning could. All right. I was going to say wait to hold your applause at the end, but we got to give it up for the AMS staff. So thank you for. The next one is our overall planning committee. This is the group that helped organize this starting nearly 2 years ago. It helped us assemble all of the theme with all the special sessions and help put together and orchestrate putting together over 40 workshops and symposia and conferences. This overall planning committee was led by Gina Esco from NOAA and Dr. John Lanici, professor at the University of South Alabama. So thank you, Gina and John as well. Finally, these categories are the ones that really is, we'd be here for the next 30 minutes reading names, and it's just incredible. I hope to thank as many of you individually as I can. But for the program committee, organizing all the conferences, all of their conference chairs, the session leaders for each of those conferences. And then finally, for those of you that are here, we had several students that are helping us actually run the day-to-day part of the meeting. And finally, a special shout out to the student conference planning committee. And this group led by Tyler and Nick and Margaret, with several people supporting them, helped put the student conference together and really made this a reality. They had to kind of make a lot of audible calls here at the end of the fourth quarter to pull this off. So I want to thank all of them as well. All right, with that, we're going to transition a little bit for some informational. So can I have the slide, please, of our new elected leaders? So through a vote of the entire membership, we have elected a new president-elect, Brad Coleman. And Brad is here. Welcome, Brad, when you see him. Also, we have new counselors, Kristen Avert, Monica Bell, Candace Boyd, Bernadette Woods-Plackey, and Rachel Hauser. So these counselors are your representatives and are make up the governing body, the board of directors of the AMS that run the society and on your behalf. So I'd like to welcome all the counselors and our new president-elect. Well, just as we welcome the new, we want to thank those that are outgoing. And so one of the things that you may not realize is that when you're elected to the council, you're there for 3 years. When you're elected president, it's not just 1 year, it's a 4-year commitment on the council. And so for those that are outgoing, past President Jenny Evans, councilors Christy Ebi, Erica Groh, Wayne Higgins, Kim Klico-McLean, and Jim Steenberg. Also commissioners, Doug Hildebrand, Maureen McCann, and Yvette Richardson. These are the senior leaders that make the AMS work. So I want to thank all of you for your dedicated service during your time on the council and commission. And two names that are not on here, but I do want to talk about them just briefly. I also want to especially thank the presidents that transitioned with me. When I came in as president-elect, Mary Glacken served as a friend and mentor and really helped guide me through. And it's been a pleasure working with you. And the same can be said with Rich Clark, who's coming in behind me as your new president. It's been a true pleasure working with you. With that, this is the time where I get to talk about the year I had as president. So 2021, not much happened. The year started off with I thought it was a great idea the year I was going to be president to start a new job. That doesn't sound like a great idea, but it happened. So I started the year really with a very challenging job coming back to the National Weather Service in the middle of a pandemic. That's the way my year started. And year ended, I went to Boulder to visit family and go skiing. The day after I arrived, I was in emergency surgery for a detached retina. And while I was laying there healing, all the Boulder fires came in. So 2021 went out with a bang. But in between those interesting start and finish, there was a lot really wonderful that happened in 2021 with the AMS. First, AMS has really thrived during the pandemic. It's been a lot of work by a lot of you, both here in the room and those that are watching online. It's been a lot of effort to keep things going and growing and thriving with the challenges of a pandemic. This annual meeting and the amount of people registered is just one of many examples to show that we had worked. That couldn't have happened alone. While there are over 12,000 members and we value each and every one of them, the reality is that really the nuts and bolts of making the AMS work are by 1,000 or 2,000 really engaged members who are volunteers that serve on our boards, our commissions, our committees, as editors and reviewers of our journals. And of course, as I mentioned before, the complete AMS staff, which is among the best you'll ever see from any professional society. We've also had something really cool. We launched our first new journal in a few years, our newest AMS journal on machine learning and artificial intelligence for the environment is already off to a great start, and is going to help the AMS lead the growth of artificial intelligence and its applications to environmental science. I think that I've seen the growth of these environmental security special sessions. I hope that all of you can tune into as many of them as possible. I know it's always a challenge at the annual meeting when you have up to 20 or 30 concurrent things. Fortunately, we do have these recorded, so if you miss one, please watch them. It's really going to be building upon the wonderful things you heard tonight at the Presidential Forum. And I mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. The student conference just blew me away. It's had such a fantastic time engaging with new emerging leaders of the AMS and our society, as well as the weather, water, and climate enterprise at large. You all worked very hard to pull this off, and I'm so glad you were able to come in person. I will admit, along with a lot of our planning committee and the staff that put their heart and soul into making the annual meeting, it was kind of like a family member died the day we had to really make the decision to go mostly virtual. But what gave us second wind, in addition to, of course, making this the best virtual meeting we could possibly do, was knowing we could come and spend time with you at the student conference. So I'm incredibly thrilled to be here. So it's really been my distinct honor to serve as your president in 2021 and to thank everyone for your hard work and dedication to the AMS and to the weather enterprise. With that, I would like to move on to a few special acknowledgements. So the next slide So we have a new AMS executive director. This was also one of the things that happened during 2021. Our outgoing director, Keith Sider, announced his pending retirement. And so several of the senior members we appointed a special search committee, made a national search, spent quite a lot of time doing that, having interviews, and in the end, we're thrilled to have Dr. Stella Kofla join us as our new executive director. Her first day of work was right after the new year, and she's already hitting the ground running. So I'd like to welcome Stella and have her stand and wave so you can track her down later and tell her what you think about the AMS. In that previous mention of as good things end, other things begin. Next slide, please. Keith, you really didn't expect this, but I can't possibly go without telling you how much you mean to me and the AMS. He has been with the AMS for several decades as a staff member, in the last 17 as our executive director. He has really made a huge difference to our society. He has been the person you could go to when things needed to be done, always with a smile, always with professionalism. You felt like you were the most important person in the world when you talked to him, and he only had 12,000 members to deal with. He's led us through good times and bad, tough times and easier times, and we're thrilled that he has agreed to stay on for a transition period with Stella, as well as stay engaged as Executive Director Emeritus. And we are just grateful and honored to have served with you these many years, Keith. We wish you all the best in your next challenges, and we look forward to working with you as a member, AFS member for life. Thank you, Keith. And finally, next slide, please. One of the luminaries in our field, an icon truly, Bill Hook is also retiring as our senior policy fellow, previously the director of the policy program. He's inspired and impacted so many people through many decades of service with the early career professional symposium during the summer, the policy colloquium. Dozens, if not hundreds of people have been impacted by this man over the years. Some of the people that have gone through that program have become leaders, national leaders, international leaders in our discipline. He's a wise sage, delivers wisdom with us, and is really one of the most thoughtful people I ever worked with. So with that, we all are happy to announce that the Society has established the William Hook Fellowship that will support early career members to attend the AMS Summer Policy Colloquium, the one that he helped found. This fellowship is being funded by member donations, and we really hope to have it fully endowed at some point in the coming year or the near future. I'm really sorry we're not all in person to really show our appreciation for all that he has done for our broader community, as well as Keith. So with that, I'd like to recognize Bill Hook and thank him for all of his service. All right, at this point, I did mention a lot of counselors and commissioners. So the AMS, in terms of all the committees, they are organized under 5 main commissions. We're going to hear tonight, as part of the business meeting, a really brief summary of what happens during the last year. For those of you in the audience, particularly since it's primarily students, please pay close attention, because the kind of activities that they're going to talk about are areas that you are going to be able to become involved with the committees and boards that fall underneath them. We're always looking for a breadth from students and early career professionals all the way up to graying people like myself and everyone in between to really form a diverse panel within all these committees and boards. So hopefully all of you, if you see something that interests you, please reach out to these commissioners and their committees. So with that, we're going to play some of these and over the last year. So I'm going to invite you to watch these videos now.
Commissioner Christy Franz. I'll keep this relatively short. You can see the full report in the council packet. We do not have any current action items, so we do have a few things that may be coming up down the road. STAC has been busy. We, of course, represent the largest number of volunteers among the commissions in AMS. Over the last year, we've had a number of our committees and boards, we have 36 total, that have been involved in a variety of activities, including, of course, programming the annual meeting. And I think we should give a big thanks to all the program chairs and AMS staff who have worked tirelessly in planning, and particularly in the last few weeks, converting this meeting to a fully virtual format. I miss seeing all of you in Houston, of course, but I'm glad we can at least still hold a meeting. As you can see in the packet, there's a whole bunch of specialty meetings planned for 2022 after the annual. Almost all of them are being planned for in person, so I hope we can be able to do that. The other big activity we did recently was designate 13 STAC Board and Committee Awards, as we have done in the last several years. These awards, most of them, all but two, are being presented virtually at AMS Annual in one form or another. Two others will come up in a special meeting down the road. Beyond that, you can also see in the meetings that we had 3 named sessions in 2022 that STAC had reviewed. And there is also a named session in the Mountain Meteorology meeting coming up. There are also 2 named symposia that were postponed from 2021 to 2022 for Kevin Trenberg and Richard Johnson. And there were 2 that were selected for 2023 for Roger Filkey Sr. and Bill Hook. And then there'll be a discussion for the 2024 ones. Beyond that, the STAC committee chairs, board and committee chairs have been meeting through webinars. We have our annual meeting on Zoom in a couple of weeks on February 4th, and we hope to have a few special guests there, specifically talk about drafting and revising statements, something that STAC committees are often involved in. Beyond that, we've been involved with the glossary of meteorology with 29 terms. And also with a variety of AMS annual awards in terms of their review and nomination. You can also see in our packet of our 438 members a demographic breakdown. We have some good information from Beth Farley at AMS on gender. We can see we're up to 41% women. We're hoping to get more data on ethnicity and race down the road to help us better understand how we're meeting our diversity goals as well. So I think I'll leave it at that, and thanks a lot.
Welcome to the Education and Engagement Commission update. My name is Kevin Gobert, and I currently serve as the commissioner, and I'm here to offer some highlights of our commission's activities over the past year. This was the first year of the new commission structure, combining old elements of the Education and Human Resource Commission with some committees that reported to the AMS Executive Committee and a couple of new boards and committees that emanated from the AMS Centennial Initiatives. Specifically, the work of the Board on Representation, Accessibility, Inclusion, and Diversity, or BRAID, has grown its membership as it continues to expand its reach and support of AMS members. They continue their excellent work of cultivating a welcoming and inclusive organization for all of our members. The Board on Higher Education has initiated a review of the AMS Bachelor's Degree Statement and is working on a new best practice document to inform students and educators about the educational needs of the private sector. The Board on Outreach and Informal Education has revamped their outreach efforts around the annual meeting and are conducting a wide array of virtual events. The hope is to expand these types of events and empower AMS members to make an impact in their regions by doing outreach activities within the communities they reside. The Board on Membership has been reviewing the benefits of membership and working to understand how we can evolve our offerings to ensure that AMS remains relevant for all who join and work within the atmospheric and related sciences. In addition, a new subcommittee was formed to help guide the AMS Weather Band, the new AMS Weather Enthusiast offering. If you know of someone who loves the weather, tell them about the AMS Weather Band and encourage them to join. The Early Career Leadership Academy was able to hold their 2020 event virtually in March to great success. This program is aimed at cultivating early career members from diverse backgrounds into future leaders within AMS and the greater weather, water, and climate enterprise. Applications are now open for the 2022 cohort, so apply now if you're interested. So much great work has happened over the course of the past year from all of our boards and committees. The whole commission looks forward to working with all AMS members to help advance the work of our society in the year to come. Thank you.
Maureen McCann here from Spectrum News 13 in Orlando, Florida, with some updates on the Commission on Professional Affairs. Within this commission, we have 9 boards and committees that are dedicated to professional growth and development, and that includes the certification programs. We have 90 volunteers, or over 90 volunteers, that help keep these boards and committees going. As for those certifications, 38 new CBMs, that's the broadcast meteorologist seal. We have 15 new certified consulting meteorologists, and then our newest designation, certified AMS teacher. That's in conjunction with the EEC Commission. We awarded 24 of those this year. Now, as for a cross-commission initiative, we continue to work on ECLA. You know, we love our acronyms. ECLA stands for Early Career Leadership Academy. It was virtual in 2021, but we're accepting applications for the class of 2022. So look for that on the AMS website. Another thing, we continue to support Mentoring 365, always looking for mentors and mentees to apply for that. So this marks the end of my term as AMS Commissioner on Professional Affairs. So I want to send it over to Mike Agustinak, who's the incoming commissioner, and he has some news on what's to come with the commission going forward in 2022.
Thanks, Maureen, and thank you for your leadership over the past 6 years. I'm really excited to continue the Commission's work of supporting and recognizing our members as they grow throughout their careers and ensuring that AMS certifications are accessible to all while remaining the gold standard. There are 2 key initiatives to help make that happen. The first revolves around existing certifications. You know, today, 13% of the U.S. population are native Spanish speakers, and by 2050, estimates are that 1 in 3 Americans will speak Spanish. We need to meet our members and the public where they're at. So the Broadcast Board, CBM Exam Review Committee, and CHALA, with support from Kelly Savoy and AMS staff, have already begun the work required to evaluate and test CBM applicants wholly in Spanish. It's going to take a lot of work and some time to reach the finish line on that project, but once we do, we'll work to make the CCM and CAT bilingual as well. The second initiative actually allows you to submit ideas for new certifications through CPROF to the AMS Council. Since launching earlier this year, we've already received packets in support of 2 new certifications. Learn what's required to propose a new certification in the professional development section of the AMS website. If you'd like to connect or collaborate, you can find me in the AMS community, on Twitter, or email me, ma@mikeagustinak.com.
Greetings, I'm Yvette Richardson, the current AMS Planning Commissioner. The Planning Commission's mission is twofold. We do long-term strategic thinking for the society, and we work on specific shorter-term topics through task forces that we create. In terms of long-term strategic planning, the Planning Commission this year updated a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or SWOT analysis for the society, and we will be compiling the high-level items in each category as input for the Council. The Planning Commission also gathered information on activities across the entire society to see how all of the committees, commissions, and boards are contributing to the society's strategic goals. We will now look for both accomplishments and any gaps in implementation to inform our planning. The Task Force on Leadership Development, chaired by Chris Bagaski, conducted extensive interviews to better understand how AMS cultivates leaders within the society. Their report to Council included several key findings and recommendations designed to make those in AMS leadership positions more accessible, make leadership and volunteering opportunities more visible, increase the engagement of early career members across the society, including at the highest levels, and integrate Early Career Leadership Academy or ECLA graduates into AMS governance. A Future of Meetings task force is now being formed. Meetings play an essential role in the AMS. With virtual and hybrid formats recently becoming a potentially viable alternative to being fully in person, the society needs to consider the nature of meetings going forward. This year, we added an incoming commissioner for 1 year, Susan Jasko, and she will take over as the current commissioner at the end of this meeting. I know she will do a great job. We are excited to bring on Kim Klopko as the new incoming commissioner. Susan and Kim will each serve 2 years in these roles, while I transition to past commissioner after 5 years as the planning commissioner. It has been a true honor, and I thank the Society for this opportunity to serve. I hope you all enjoy the annual meeting.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Broccoli, and I'm the AMS Publications Commissioner. I'm here with an update on the activities of the Commission during the past year. AMS Journals received approximately 3,130 submissions in 2021, a reduction of about 12% from the previous year. The impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the professional and personal lives of authors are a likely contributor to this reduction in submissions. Fortunately, there has been no adverse impact on the time to publication for papers submitted to our journals, which is a testament to the dedication of reviewers, editors, and AMS staff. AMS is pleased to offer authors and readers a new journal that began accepting submissions late in 2021. Artificial Intelligence for the Earth Systems publishes research on the development and application of methods in artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, and statistics that are relevant to meteorology, atmospheric science, hydrology, climate science, and ocean sciences. Professor Amy McGovern of the University of Oklahoma is the founding chief editor of this new journal. We offer a hearty farewell to 2 chief editors who have completed long tenures with AMS Journals, Tim Del Sol at the Journal of Climate and Rizal Mahmoud of Earth Interactions. Thank you for your exemplary service. Tim and Rizal will be succeeded in their positions by Darren Waugh of Johns Hopkins, who has joined Ming-Fang Ting as co-chief editor of the Journal of Climate, and Sonali McDermott of NYU, who has taken the reins at Earth Interactions. I'll close by thanking everyone involved in AMS Publications for their efforts during the past year, including the professional staff at AMS and the volunteer reviewers, editors, chief editors, and at-large Publications Commission members who devote their time for the benefit of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our commissioners for all your excellent work, and as well as not just yourselves, but of course the boards and committees that report within your commission. As I mentioned before, they really represent literally hundreds of dedicated volunteers just like you who make the AMS work for the society and for you as individuals. At this point, it's the part of the business meeting. We can go pretty brief. This is the Secretary Treasurer report. I'd like to note that the business covered in this session, the list of the meetings we've sponsored during the past year, the summaries of our budgets for both 20 and 21 are included in the preliminary Secretary Treasurer's annual report. They'll be available on the AMS website very soon. And then the final Secretary's report will appear in our Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society, or BAMS, later in the year. And with that, there is a somber thing we do every year. And like we have a big society with 12,000, so we always lose some of our most valued members every year. With that, I'd like to put the list on the screen, please. This represents most of those are predominant members that passed away during the year 2021. I will note that Lisa Goddard was a luminary in the climate field, actually just passed away a week or so ago. We added her in there because even though it's just a 2021 list, we'll hear more about her and her legacy from Roger Priority at a session later this week. I'd like you to take a moment of silence and read through the list with me and remember those who have passed. Well, with that solemn moment, we're going to transition to something very inspirational. This is really one of the best parts of the meeting, and that is seeing the professionals and the award winners recognized from across all of our society and this year's award winners. In the years past, we have the presidents getting up here reading. And if you saw our commission reports, you could tell which ones were broadcasters and which ones weren't. And so it occurred to us, why not take advantage of this incredible resource as a pillar of our community? So it's my pleasure to, with on screen, to be able to introduce the chief meteorologist of ABC News, Ginger Z, and last year's award winner for the award for broadcast meteorology. And she is going to officiate the ceremony. So with that, let's please go to the screen.
I am the Commissioner of the Science, Technical, and
Sorry, Anchor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ginger Z, live from my basement. Well, I just came off live TV at Rockaway Beach covering a storm. So I've got like storm hair, but this, hey, what better than a meteorologist who has just been in a storm than to present so many of these awards to you. So I'm so grateful to be here. And we want to begin with the fellows for 2022. The AMS Constitution states that, quote, those eligible for election to fellow shall have made outstanding contributions to the atmospheric or related oceanic and hydrologic sciences or their applications during a substantial period of years, end quote. So this year's class of fellows embody this sense of contribution to the community. The 2022 new fellows are Dennis D. Baldacci, Mi-Ann Chin, Jennifer M. Collins, Paul Douglas, Andreas H. Fink, Robert G. Goldhammer, Stephen W. Harnett, Andy Himsfield, Gerald M. Heimsfeld, Faisal Hossein, Everett Joseph, Troy M. Kimmel Jr., Valiappa Lakshmanan, Xin Chong Liang, Julie K. Lundquist, Gudrun Magnus Daughter, Sarah C. Pryor, Liz Ritchie, Hui Su, Guilin Wang, Chin Su, Sapita Yalda. And turning next to our 2022 lectureships, the Walter Orr Roberts Lecturer is Allison L. Steiner. Allison, this is for your outstanding research in biosphere-atmosphere interactions and their influence on atmospheric chemistry, weather, and climate. The Robert E. Horton Lecturer in Hydrology is Francina Dominguez. And this is for Francina's outstanding contributions to terrestrial hydrometeorology and expanding the understanding of land-atmosphere interactions, significantly closing the gap between the atmospheric and hydrologic sciences. And the Bernard Harwitz Memorial Lecturer is Isla R. Simpson for novel approaches in advancing fundamental knowledge of the dynamics of stratosphere-troposphere coupling and the response of atmospheric circulation and variability to climate forcing. And now to our 2022 awardees. The local Student Chapter of the Year Award is presented to the Northern Vermont University Linden Student Chapter for finding new and creative ways to provide community service, professional development, and social opportunities for its members. We now come to an award that is given to those involved in operational forecasting, the Charles L. Mitchell Award. It is presented to Daniel G. Kotlowski for exceptional forecast services provided to stakeholders for more than 40 years, as exemplified through his unwavering support of the broadcast sector and training of meteorologists. The AMS Editors Awards are presented to individuals who have performed exemplary reviews of manuscripts submitted to the AMS journals. It is a wonderful opportunity to recognize some of the best reviewers for work that is typically done anonymously, but that is critical to the quality and success of AMS peer-reviewed publications. So we have a number of these editor awards to recognize today. Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society, Robert J. Trapp, for numerous thorough and insightful reviews that resulted in substantially improved manuscripts. Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology, Ski Young Zong, for providing multiple timely, thorough reviews and thoughtful advice as an associate editor. Journal of Atmospheric and Oceanic Technology, Bruce Ingleby, for timely and excellent reviews provided over the years. Journal of Climate, Antonietta Captandi, for numerous high quality and thorough reviews. Journal of Climate, Russell Blackport, for consistently delivering detailed, informative, and timely reviews. Journal of Climate, Kazuaki Nishie, for particularly insightful and careful reviews. Journal of Hydrometeorology, Lawrence Mudrick, for thorough and constructive reviews of highly technical manuscripts. Journal of Hydrometeorology, Romina Rusica, for thorough and insightful reviewing of multiple Journal of Hydrometeorology manuscripts. Journal of Physical Oceanography, Leah Johnson, for several very perceptive and helpful reviews in a variety of subdisciplines. Journal of the Atmospheric Sciences, Manuela Lenner, for providing constructive and thorough reviews and improved the organization, clarity, and content of manuscripts. Journal of the Atmospheric Sciences, Maria Gaina, for multiple concise, thoughtful, and thorough reviews. Monthly Weather Review, Andrew C. Winters, for consistently providing constructive, insightful, and timely reviews for a large number of manuscripts. Weather and Forecasting, I love that I read some of these, so fun. Michael J. Brennan, for providing numerous superb reviews over many years in areas relating to tropical meteorology and operational prediction. Weather and Forecasting, Monthly Weather Review, Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology. John T. Allen, for contributing an exceptional number of excellent reviews spanning a broad range of scientific areas and across several AMS journals. Weather and Forecasting, Monthly Weather Review, Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology. Ryan Lagerquist, for contributing numerous rigorous and constructive reviews in the areas of machine learning and artificial intelligence across 3 journals. Weather, Climate, and Society. Castle Williams, for thoughtful and thorough reviews always delivered from an encouraging and positive perspective. Weather, Climate, and Society. Ashlyn K. Quinn, for helping the authors write an outstanding paper by providing a review that identified the salient issues. The Society is also presenting 4 awards specifically aimed at outstanding early career professionals. The award for Early Career Professional Achievement is presented to Joseph E. Trujillo Falcon, for innovative and extensive collaboration in risk communication for Spanish-speaking communities and leadership as an exceptional student member across multiple AMS boards and committees. The Nicholas P. Fofanoff Award is presented to Andrew L. Stewart, for his pioneering research discoveries regarding the dynamics of oceanic currents, eddies, and sea ice in polar regions. The Henry G. Houghton Award is presented to Mark D. Zelinka, for innovative advances in understanding the critical involvement of clouds to achieve a better understanding of climate interactions. The Clarence Leroy Meisinger Award is presented to Isla R. Simpson. Congrats again. This time for advancing scientific understanding through studies of the fundamental mechanics that govern tropospheric and stratospheric circulation influences on surface climate variability and change. A wonderful aspect of our science that I am always honored to be a part of is the connection to everyone, everywhere through media. We have 2 broadcast awardees to recognize today. The award for excellence in science reporting by a broadcast meteorologist is presented to Anthony Yanez, for combining journalism, science, and advanced technology to explain and gain interest in weather and ocean topics pertaining to Southern California. The June Bacon Bursey Award for Broadcast Meteorology is presented to Danielle Breezy, I know her, for exceptional life-saving coverage during the March 2nd through 3rd, 2020 Middle Tennessee tornado outbreak and sustained efforts to educate the community about severe weather safety before, during, and after. In addition to broadcast meteorologists, the public learns about our science and its impacts through journalists and authors of books aimed to both adults and children. We have 3 awards in this category. The award for distinguished science journalism in the atmospheric and related sciences is awarded to Heather Goss for illustrating in a scientifically accurate way how advances in lightning detection positively impact public safety through improved forecasting and verification of tornadoes and wildfires. The Lewis J. Battens Author Award for a book aimed at K-12 audience is awarded to Jessica Stoller Conrad. This is for The Big Book of Weather, which balances accessible scientific descriptions with visual and experiential learning that motivates budding investigators to understand the hows and whys of atmospheric phenomena. The Lewis J. Battens Author Award for a book aimed at an adult audience is awarded to Tim Woolings for Jetstream, a very readable and scientifically accurate account of large-scale atmospheric dynamics told from the perspective of a drifting weather balloon. Love that idea. The Society awards a special award to an individual or group that has made an outstanding contribution in ways that do not fall under other award criteria. So this year, the AMS is presenting a special award to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and United States Forest Service. This is for critical groundbreaking work creating and fielding a platform providing for the health and safety of Arizona residents with early and ongoing wildfire smoke forecasts. In this next group, the awardees have made outstanding contributions across a variety of activities. The Banner I. Miller Award is presented to Charles R. Sampson, John A. Neff, and Kate Musgrave. This is for developing a new application to significantly improve the prediction of rapid intensification of tropical cyclones in the Western North Pacific. The award for outstanding achievement in biometeorology is presented to Rong Fu for elucidating the critical role of tropical biosphere feedback mechanisms, exceptional mentorship of underrepresented groups in science, and extraordinary service to scientific societies and policymakers. The Helmut E. Landsberg Award is presented to Petra M. Klein for decades of sustained leadership in the field of urban meteorology and exemplary contribution to experimental investigation of flow and turbulence characteristics in urban areas. The Charles E. Anderson Award is awarded to Melissa A. Burt for enduring efforts to broaden awareness, spark creativity, and expand opportunities while promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion within the geosciences community and beyond. The Henry T. Harrison Award for outstanding contributions by a consulting meteorologist is presented to John Tui Morales for a career of exemplary service as a certified consulting meteorologist. The award for outstanding contribution to the advance of applied meteorology is presented to Prabhat Kumar for innovative concepts in developing the pre-hail detection algorithm, the cloud seeding techniques to enhance weather modification and mitigation to agriculture and other fields. The Shukuro Manabe Climate Research Award is presented to Cecilia Bitts for fundamental contributions to polar climate science, including numerical modeling, its role in the global climate system, and causes and consequences of polar climate change. The Joanne Simpson Tropical Meteorology Research Award is presented to Frank D. Marks. This is for outstanding contributions to the understanding and prediction of tropical cyclones through scholarship, field contributions, and community leadership. Continuing now with the Kenneth C. Spangler Award, the recipient of that award is Renee Leduc. This is for fundamental contributions and leadership connecting the weather enterprise, AMS membership, international community, and policymakers, as well as enhancing awareness of radio spectrum management issues. The next two awards recognize teaching and mentorship, which are central to developing future generations of atmospheric scientists. And I couldn't agree more. I still have all of my mentors and love them and try to be as much of one as I can be to others. The Robert H. and Joanne Simpson Mentorship Award is presented to Thomas L. Wyndham for visionary and dedicated mentorship of numerous individuals, many from a diverse background, to assist them to realize their full potential. The Edward N. Lorenz Teaching Excellence Award is presented to Don T. Conley. This is for demonstrating excellence and devotion to cultivating student success by providing unique hands-on experiences with meteorological instrumentation, immersive international forecasting experiences, I love that, and sustained career mentoring. The Society identifies two awards to recognize valuable service to our science and our society. The Cleveland Abbey Award for Distinguished Service to the Atmospheric and Related Science is presented to Paul A. Newman. This is for sustained leadership and service to science, resulting in strengthened policy development for the Montreal Protocol, including contributions to the Kigali Amendment. The Charles Franklin Brooks Award for Outstanding Service to the Society is presented to Pamela G. Emch. For over 20 years of sustained, spirited, and exemplary leadership in the AMS Weather, Water, and Climate Enterprise Commission and the entire weather community. The following two individuals are being recognized for their contributions to science and technology. The David and Lucille Atlas Remote Sensing Prize is presented to Kelly Chance for seminal contributions and extensive collaboration in satellite instrumentation, retrieval algorithm physics, spectroscopy, and measurements to advance the remote sensing of atmospheric trace gases.
Hello, this is Kelly Chance. I'm honored to receive the David and Lucille Atlas Remote Sensing Prize for this year. Where we're at is the culmination of many years of work by my research group and others, beginning in 1985 when we first proposed Skiamaki, and then GOM came along shortly after that. We had the data and algorithm studies for both, and there have been many satellites coming along since, and now we're culminating that with the Tempo instrument, where when it will launch later this year, we'll measure atmospheric pollution from greater North America on an hourly basis, and then shorter than hourly basis for certain case studies. So I am thrilled to be here, and I hope to meet many of you here in Houston this year to help me celebrate this wonderful prize and the situation that we're at now in measuring pollution from space and hopefully doing our best to ameliorate its effects. Thank you and goodbye.
The Werner E. Sumi Technology Medal is presented to Stephen A. Rutledge for exceptional contributions to the development, innovation, and application of radar meteorology and atmospheric electricity technologies.
I'm very grateful to receive the Sumi Medal. I thank those that nominated me, my faculty and colleagues, the great students I've worked with, and the unwavering support of my beautiful family. Thank you very much.
The next individual is being recognized for community leadership in addition to important research contributions. The Warren Washington Research and Leadership Medal is presented to Bruce A. Willicke for sustained excellence in research and leadership in the understanding and measurement of the Earth's energy budget and climate.
Hello. I'm extremely honored to receive the AMS Warren Washington Leadership and Research Medal. I knew Warren from NCAR in the 1970s, and he set a great standard for all of us to aspire to. I want to thank the incredible science teams I had the honor to work with over 40 years, Irby, Fire, Ceres, Calypso, CloudSat, and finally Clarion. This is also an honor to their ability to strive for and achieve scientific excellence despite a wide range of challenges. Science is hard, team science is even harder, but it's also incredibly rewarding. For future science leaders, I'd like to recommend 3 tools for your toolbox. First, Inspire your team with a long-term vision of what is critical to achieve for improving the world's future. That science mission is larger than any of the individuals on your team, including the team leader. Be humble, not proud. Be confident, not fearful. Second, give full respect to everyone on your team, no matter what their position. As a famous detective liked to say, everybody counts or nobody counts. Third, build a very thick skin. Refuse to take things personally. They are rarely meant that way. Miscommunication is at the heart of most people challenges. To sum it up, assume best intent. Finally, I'd like to ask that all of you spend some time thinking about the big picture issues we face, things that are beyond our individual science interests. An example is designing and building a global international climate observing system. After 30 years of focusing on climate change, we still lack that most basic of systems. I hope and pray that the next generation of Earth scientists will build it. Thank you.
The following medalists are recognized for their highly significant research in the atmospheric or hydrologic sciences and in the ocean's connection with the atmosphere. The Jewel G. Charney Medal is presented to George N. Kilidis for original, insightful contributions in understanding the codependency of tropical dynamics and convection.
I am deeply honored to accept the AMS Jewel Charney Medal. This award has a special meaning to me since I grew up in the Boston area in the 1960s, where up the street I had a clear view of the Green Building at MIT. And I always wondered what was going on in that building. Little did I know at the time that Jewel Charney and colleagues were developing the basis for much of what we do these days in the wonderful field of atmospheric and oceanic science. Fortunately, my parents encouraged me to pursue my dreams, and I have been extremely lucky in my career to work with many very talented colleagues at NOAA's Physical Sciences Laboratory and the University of Colorado. I would especially like to acknowledge the many postdocs and young colleagues that I've had the great pleasure of interacting with on a daily basis. I can't name them all, but in particular, I would like to thank Matt Wheeler, Juliana Diaz, Stefan Tulik, Maria Gene, John Albers, Naoko Sakaida, and Brandon Walding for their creativity and enthusiasm that's kept me afloat all these years. I would also like to thank Peter Webster for his inspiration, the Jewel Charney Award Committee, and the AMS for all they do to support our scientific endeavors. Finally, special thanks to my wife, Mary Campagnolo, who has always encouraged me with her love and support.
The Sverdrup Gold Medal is presented to Shuyi S. Chen for fundamental contributions to understanding of tropical air-sea interactions through innovative use of observations and coupled atmospheric wave ocean modeling.
I am deeply honored to receive the Sverdrup Gold Medal. I thank the people who nominated me and the AMS Award Committee. There are so many people who have been instrumental to my career. Just to name a few: my PhD advisor, Bill Frank, my postdoc advisor and a lifelong mentor and collaborator, Bob House. My work in air-sea coupling has been inspired by Mark Donnellan, Chris Farrar, Christina Casaros, and many more. I want to share this award with my students, postdoc associates, and the many collaborators whose work over many years have made this possible. I thank my family and friends, especially my husband, Qidong Zhang, for their love and support. Thank you.
Here we go. The following medalists are awarded our highest research awards in oceanography, hydrologic sciences, and the atmospheric sciences. The Henry Stommel Research Medal is presented to Susan Lozer. This is for theoretical, observational, modeling contributions and leadership in significantly improving our understanding of Atlantic Ocean circulation. Thank you, Susan.
I'm honored and humbled to receive the Henry Stommel Research Medal. I want to start by thanking AMS, my nominator, and supporters for this award. My 2 years as a postdoctoral scholar at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, where Henry Stommel was a senior scientist, coincided with the last 2 years of his life. I was in awe of Henry Stommel then and remain so to this day. While a postdoc, I came to appreciate his capacity to collaborate and to instill in others a sense of curiosity and awe. Everyone that I know that worked with Stommel was motivated, encouraged, and certainly inspired by him. Though my contributions hardly match those of Stommel's, I'm proud that I share his sense of curiosity and his commitment to collaboration. My life as a researcher and my research has been much richer due to the contributions and camaraderie of others. I have been so fortunate to work with colleagues with whom I could freely exchange laughs and freely exchange ideas. While working with colleagues over these years has been immensely satisfying, working with students and postdocs has been nothing short of a joy. Long ago, I decided to measure the dedication to my work, not by my hours, but by my commitment to my research, to my teaching, to my colleagues, and importantly, by my commitment to students. There's no title I relish more than mentor. And so I'm pleased to accept this award, pleased to acknowledge the contributions of the colleagues, students, and postdocs who've so enriched my work along the way, and pleased to continue my efforts to encourage, inspire, and support the next generation of oceanographers. Thank you.
The Hydrologic Sciences Medal is presented to Ruby Leung for ingenious groundbreaking contributions which enhance the modeling of land-atmosphere interactions and the hydroclimate.
Hi, I'm grateful and honored, but at the same time, extremely humbled to be selected for the AMS Hydrological Sciences Medal. Hydrological science is a cross-disciplinary field integrating knowledge across the atmosphere, land, ocean, cryosphere, and human systems, all of which can influence hydrological outcomes such as precipitation, soil moisture, runoff, and snowpack. Climate and environmental changes had and will continue to have significant impacts on water availability and extreme events, making hydrological science a highly relevant field. I'm thankful for the many collaborations I have with many colleagues and collaborators from different disciplines, learning along the way how the hydrological cycle works and how it varies and evolves. I also want to thank the Department of Energy and many other agency sponsors for supporting my research endeavors. With diverse and resourceful members, the AMS community has a lot to offer in advancing hydrological sciences. I look forward to continuing being a part of the AMS community to contribute to hydrological sciences for fundamental understanding and societal use. Thank you very much.
The Carl Gustav Rossby Research Medal is presented to Venkatachalam Ramaswamy for original and highly influential leadership, providing fundamental insight into radiative climate interaction among greenhouse gases, aerosols, and clouds.
Thank you, AMS, the awards committee, the nominator, and the letter writers for bestowing on me the Carl Gustav Rossby Medal of the American Meteorological Society. I'm indeed very privileged to be placed in the pantheon of the legendary scientists who have graced this honor. This is an extremely humbling feeling to me. I owe this recognition to the numerous scientists whom I've had the opportunity to interact with over the course of my career. These include senior scientists who imparted their wisdom selflessly, to colleagues who shaped my thinking about science, and postdocs, visiting scientists, and graduate students with whom it has been a pleasure to interact with and who have enriched me with their ideas and approaches in the atmospheric and climate sciences. These interactions have made me smarter, wiser, and more productive. Let me thank a few people. I'm especially grateful to Peter Heelek and Jeff Keel for the constant motivation and optimism during the PhD days, to Ramanathan and colleagues at NCAR for their boundless inspiration during the postdoc days there, and whose influence continues to this day, and to GFDL colleagues, including Suki Manabi, Steve Fells, Jerry Malman, and Isaac Held, for sharpening my research and also instilling the practice of exploration and meticulousness. Other scientists, such as Susan Solomon and Ravi Shankara, taught me what rigor in science means and how to communicate the results of science to society at large and for policy informing decisions. I wish to express my sincere thanks to the staff at GFDL and to the past directors at GFDL, and also to NOAA's Oceans and Atmospheric Research administrators and staff, which includes Rick Spinrad, Craig McLean, Sandy McDonald, and Gary Matlock. They have provided generous opportunities for scientific advancement and career development. Finally, I want to express my deep, infinite gratitude to my wife, Kanta, and to my daughter, Shalini, for putting up with me during my scientific journey and for their steadfast, unrelenting support. This honor would not be possible without their standing by my side constantly. Thank you again, AMS, for conferring this highest honor in atmospheric science. It's truly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who was able to send in a video. It's so nice to hear from these folks that are winning these awards. Also, we have a bit more. The outstanding individuals were all recognized with these awards because members like you took the time and effort to nominate them. So I encourage you to do the same for next year. We need more future awardees. We need to be just supporting our community. I think that's the best way to keep going forward and to keep growing the science. I know I love reading all of the work. I love reading the journals. So thank you for all of your work from my end and from everyone that I know in the community. But we want to close the awards portion of this with the highest honor bestowed to the AMS. So the election to the category of honorary member is restricted by our Constitution to, quote, persons of acknowledged preeminence in the atmospheric or related oceanic or hydrologic sciences, or their application or thorough furtherance of the advance of those sciences in some other way, end quote. Our procedures insist that, quote, again, the addition of a new name to the roster of honorary members should be as much an honor for the society as it is for the individual, end quote. And so as much of an honor it is for them, it is for us, for a couple honorary members. This year, please join me in recognizing 3 new honorary members. Harry R. Galan.
I appreciate receiving this prestigious award, and I thank the AMS very much for it. It really means a lot to me. The AMS has been a part of my life for nearly 70 years, since my first introduction to meteorology as a graduate student in 1953. I also thank the many members of the National Weather Service, and especially those of the Meteorological Development Laboratory, both past and present, who have contributed to my career over these many years. It is only with their work and support that my career has flourished. After 4 years as a weather officer in the U.S. Air Force, my entire meteorological career has been spent in MDL and its predecessors. I joined the Weather Bureau at an opportune time. Numerical weather prediction was just gaining a foothold, and predictive 500 millibar charts were beginning to be somewhat useful. Computers were still relatively new, and an IBM 704 was the Bureau's operational machine. Its general use was still very limited. No one in the branch I joined in 1958 had learned to program for it. I had an interest in statistics, and it seemed to me statistics could play a role in bringing 500 millibar information down to ground level where people lived. It soon became my goal to develop model interpretive software and products that would help forecasters produce the best forecast possible. The techniques and software we developed in MDL led to many operational text, graphic, and digital products, including the National Digital Forecast Database in use today. It's been a good ride, and I enjoyed it very much. I retired nearly 10 years ago, but MDL has still allowed me to volunteer for them in an emeritus status. Again, AMS Council, I really do appreciate this award. Thanks very much.
Margaret Lyman.
Thank you so much to my nominators and to the American Meteorological Society for this recognition as an honorary member. The list of honorary members includes so many of my heroes. You know, I'm always telling my staff not to use the word thrilled in describing my reaction to something, but I am thrilled to be a part of this distinguished group. And thank you so much for honoring me in this way. As I thought about what I might want to say to you, I decided that I wanted to reflect on the differences between how society thinks about scientists now in comparison with their regard for scientists and science in the past. While it is still true that a healthy majority of the American public trusts scientists more than almost any other group, several things have changed dramatically. We now live in a society in which a significant fraction of our population does not want to be told what they should think about any topic, even when that topic depends on science, like vaccination and climate change. And we scientists are certainly guilty of approaching issues with the perspective that we have the facts, so you should think as we think. To many, scientists are just another opinion group or interest group, and they fear that our opinion can be bought in exchange for funding. I think this is a time when scientific societies like AMS can play a special role because we do not depend on grants and contracts, because we represent a spectrum of scientific thought. We therefore have more credibility as a society than any of us has as individuals. And I think this is especially true of AMS, which represents sciences that are critical to our economy and safety, like weather, that are recognized as important. Our voice has special credibility here, and I want to urge us as a society to use it more prominently to both explain science, especially the science of climate, which is so important to our economy and safety, but also to use it to explain scientists, how we work, and the culture of science. Again, thank you so much for this wonderful honor.
Sarush Sarushian.
Thank you, AMS, for this great honor, which I'm truly humbled. I thank the awards committee as well as the leadership of AMS for this wonderful recognition given to me. Of course, we receive these recognitions for perhaps the work we've done in our professional career as well as our service to the community. As an academic, I am truly blessed with having had so many wonderful PhD students over the years, too many to name, as well as the funding agencies that have supported my work. And most importantly, is the professional societies such as AMS that allow us to disseminate the information through our publications and through the meetings, which we get together with colleagues and share our results and ideas. Again, thank you so much, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you all for staying with me through all of that. As you know, the whole world is thrown upside down, and all I have were some papers to read, but all I want is some more of your papers to read. So thank you for your incredible work. Congratulations to all the awardees, and I will see you soon from another store.
Wow, congratulations to all of our award winners. You can just see what a tremendous crew we have across the entire water and climate enterprise and our AMS membership. A special thanks to Ginger Z for doing a fantastic job and inspiring us with her words and recognizing all of our award winners. So at this point, We do have, I've invited to the stage Rich Clark, the incoming president, and we do have a motion from the floor of the AMS members represented by Todd Glickman. So can we bring Todd on?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. I move that the acts of the counselors and officers of the Society during the year ended 31 December 2021, done in the proper conduct of the business of the Society, be hereby adopted, approved, and confirmed.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. All right, to vote on this, our AMS membership online, either by the Slido poll or in the comments of the on the Zoom, can go ahead and just type in yes into that for your vote, or no if you don't agree. And our Secretary Treasurer, Bruce, could give me a thumbs up once we have a confirmation of. All right, thank you. It has been adopted, so thank you very much, Todd. With that, at this point, I would like to ask Rich Clark to assume the chair as the incoming president of the American Meteorological Society.
Thank you, Mike. Please join me in a round of applause for Mike Farrar, whose presidency culminates with this annual meeting and the imperative of environmental security. And what a wonderful presidential forum. There's a lot of thank yous that go around, and I'm going to add a few before I leave you this evening. I want to thank the past presidents, Mary Glacken and Jenny Evans, and current and past council members who have helped me navigate through the learning curve as president-elect. It's a significant time commitment, and I really appreciate the advice that they've given me. I want to also thank all the volunteers who serve as board chairs and commissioners and members of the 140 commissions and boards and committees that make up our organization. A hearty thank you. A special thanks to our Executive Director Emeritus, Keith Sider, whose advice was and is salient and substantive, and to the AMS staff of exemplary professionals who collectively keep the gears of this organization turning while providing actionable advice. I look forward to working with the new Executive Director, Stella Kafka, and the President-elect, Brad Coleman. A special thanks to all the AMS members who have given me this opportunity and the privilege to serve you as the 2022 President. I promise to be a good steward and, when necessary, a change agent. I look forward to an in-person meeting in Denver in 2023. Where we will focus on the theme data, driving science, informing decisions, enriching humanity. I wish to congratulate the 2022 award recipients and fellows of the American Meteorological Society, and I want to announce my invitation to the awardees and fellows from 2021 and this meeting, as well as the respective past presidents, to come to the Denver meeting in 2023 and be recognized in person for your accomplishments. I want to thank my family for their support, especially my wife and my colleague, Seppi Yalda, who I congratulate on her election to AMS Fellow this evening. And I want to finish by recognizing all the students who took time from what is probably the first or second week of a semester, probably not regretting that too much, I'd imagine, to come to Houston to take part in the in-person portion of the annual meeting. I'm sure that it was an enriching experience for each of you, and I thank all the presenters that played a role in that enrichment. Now, I would like to call, if they're in the audience, and I hope they are, Mary Glacken, Mike's already here, Keith Sider, Stella Kafka, and Brad Coleman to come to the stage and be recognized, and a little bit of a photo op here. Do we have everyone? Is Mary here? I know Jenny's, Jenny would not be. Oh, she did. Okay. Well, we'll have to Photoshop her in. Anyway, if we can, what would you like us to do? There's Keith.
We're the same level.
Right.
If I could just.
It's all right. Good.
Excellent.
I know we're going to have a great meeting, and I'm really looking forward to all of the conference presentations and the activities that are going on as they relate to environmental security. So yeah, let's have a great meeting, and this ends the business meeting. And do I hear a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? Thank you. We are adjourned.